Welcome to the Commander Kid. Today we got something pretty special. I'm going to be doing a box opening. Rondus, Rage of Ancients. I thought to myself, when you have friends and family over, the best way of getting to know each other and spending quality time is to have a meal together. So what would be the magic equivalent? This is our very first episode of the Commander Kid, and I thought to myself, let's do a box opening. And while I'm going through the cards, we can look through some interesting stuff and just chat about what is the channel all about? What was I thinking even starting this? It's quite a big adventure. Quick tip, right? I just done the first weird thing. This box tapers up like that, right? So if you open up the top of the box, you're not going to get anything out of it. Okay, so and now I see there's a little perforated thing at the bottom. So yeah, welcome to the show. This is pretty exciting. It's the very first episode of the Commander Kid. I've been planning this for a little while. I was actually in hospital just a little while ago and reading through some Facebook comments and noted that Commander Advisory Group actually reached out to the South African community. That was really exciting for me. I was oh man, something big is going to happen. We're going to have a GP here or something. I don't know. Commander Fest is one of my dream things to go to. Right? So I was really excited. But what they really wanted to do is just figure out, what is the state of Commander here in South Africa? Oh, sweet. Dragons. Rule is one of my favorite sort of color combinations. I played Xenagos, God of Revels, ever since it was printed. It was one of my earlier decks that I had. So I was very excited when I saw this, and it kind of spoke to me. The color schemes really speak to me. This is pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of those really big cards, by the way. I used to have them and make stuff out of them, put them on my card files and stuff like that. So this is pretty interesting. You get a little couple tokens that you can punch out and stuff like that. That can be useful, I guess. But yeah, let's just put that down. That's trash. Okay, so what do we get in the box? It's 2 little packets of stuff. So I'm guessing this is going to be the commanders and some tokens. It's quite cool. I like how you separate them. So I was very interested. I saw that this was the commander this is a bigger, thicker one. That's cool. Okay, that's new. Well, you can tell I haven't actually opened up a pre-con pack in a while. I usually buy singles and then build my decks that way, but I like these double-sided tokens. This is quite nice. You can have the 2. This is quite a unique token. You're not going to be able to use it everywhere, but these other ones, beasts and dragons, all day long. And Monarch. Monarch is such a good mechanic. I love Monarch. I wish we had more Monarch. Monarch was really, really fun. Okay, cool. So this is the deck. Let's see what do we get with it. I'm really pumped for the Dragon Commander, the one that reduces stuff's costs. This is going to be a 35-minute video of people watching me fumble to open this thing. So I know some people will be freaking out right now that I just used a knife to cut off the top, but I'm sorry I needed to do that. Otherwise it'd be here all day. Let's move that stuff out of the way. Cool. So we get Rondus, Rage of Ancients. This is this guy that makes these 5. He makes these 5/4 red and green dragon token dragon spirits. They sort of disappear when it's gone. So this is that new mechanic that they've just made right now for the new Innistrad set. So that's quite interesting. It's a bit of a precursor to that. But this is the guy that I'm really excited about. This dragon, this legendary badass dragon. I'm so pumped. Flying, haste. Whenever it attacks, add mana in any combination where X is the total power of attacking creatures in rule. So the reason why I'm really pumped for this, right, is that playing Xenagos, you double the power of your stuff. So you would just all day long be able to cast spells. And it's cast any spell. It's so good. I love this card. It's so good. Okay. Then you get a little reminders of what the rules look like. This is actually quite neat. So I've been trying to teach my wife how to play for a long time. She whips my butt every time we play, but having a little thing like this is a game changer. It's very cool. Okay, cool. So let's see. Let's go through this super quick, and I'll go to the back and then just take out some of the lands. Okay, so like the lands are boring-ish. The big difference between the newer ones and some of the older ones is these ones have like a little bit of text telling you a little bit about the place, which is quite nice. I like that. Using the space, it does sort of like sort of make the symbol a little tougher to see, but that's fine. Like you get a little bit of the story of the location. The art is just amazing. I love landscape art. The Magic landscape art is so great. I often have it as like backgrounds on my computers, so always happy to have more art backgrounds. Cool. Let's see. Let me like this is. I'll show you what I used to do when I was like a kid. Right. I've been playing Magic since Ice Age, so it's been a little while. I did stop and then start again and then stop and start again. But the thing that used to like really attract me to like Commander specifically when the first few sets came were like actually printed, like those precons, right? Was that like you would buy a box of boosters and get one rare or mythic per box, well, per booster. And then, so in the box you would get like 20, right? So I don't know, like as a kid, like having a rare or like mythic was a big deal. So seeing a Commander set come out and then all of a sudden there's like 80 rares. You can have 80 rares. But they pack them full of like these like really nice rare mythic cards. So like as a kid, like that was the thing that made it good. I would just go back in time, I'd get more like Senses Divining Tops. So that's uncommon. Cool. So that's like separated into like rares and mythics, and I think just guessing this is going to be like your uncommons and commons. I think that's how they like split it. Good guess. Okay, cool. So, what are the interesting things in here? Okay, it's Berserker's Frenzy. This is pretty cool. You get to like, it introduces dice. D20 is like one that I use quite a lot anyways, so that's fine. But it's pretty cool. This one says you cast a spell only before combat during your combat, before blockers are declared, and then you roll, and then choose any number of creatures they block, which is quite nice. You can like eliminate stuff at 3 at instant speed. You can also do this during your opponent's turn, so you can make like people that have like block dorks that don't want to block, you make them block, right? So that's quite nice. So there's mana dorks, so there's like small creatures that tap early on for like mana, or any utility creature that you really don't want in combat. You can like sort of get them out of that phase with this thing, which is quite nice. And if it's like of a higher rate, you can sort of choose how they're going to be blocking. Cool. Then we have Chaos Dragon, also flying haste. I like haste. I like getting to use your stuff right away. A lot of these cards I think actually may end up in my Savala deck, because like I love having like these big beefy creatures that just land and do stuff, right? Chaos Dragon, this one also uses D20 dice, which is really nice. This one is at the beginning of each combat on your turn, each player rolls a d20. If one or more of those opponents have the highest result, choose Chaos Dragon, attack those players or planeswalkers they control. So this is really interesting. Probably not like the best one, but for a 4/4 for 3 mana, that's pretty nice. Just getting a big blocker on the board. Maddening Hex, this is a curse. It's pretty interesting to see how there's like a pretty wide variety of types that are in this. So this one enchants a player, casts a non-creature spell, roll d6. Maddening Hex deals damage to that player equal to the result, and then attach Maddening Hex to another one of your opponents chosen at random. Okay, so that's going to be quite interesting. There's a new Curse commander that's going to be coming out in Innistrad that may want something like this. It's only a 3, that's quite nice. Vengeful Ancestor, this thing does work. I love Goad as a mechanic, so this goads. Whenever a creature goads and attacks, it deals 1 damage to its controller. That small little 1 damage, it actually eats up over time. I'm not doing anything here specific with my piles. I'm just putting stuff down. Bags of Tricks. This one here just sort of reveals top of a creature card with mana value equal to the number of results. So you roll a d8. A lot of these roll dice because of the main commander that's in here. Right, so Due to purification into the battlefield, starting with you, each player may choose an artifact or enchantment they control. Destroy each permanent chosen this way. I mean, I like this type of effect, which is quite nice. If you don't have many artifacts and enchantments, it doesn't really impact, which is quite nice. Oh, it says you don't control. Nice. Okay, so this is very cool. I would use this quite a lot. You could blink this and make like a lot of chaos, especially if your opponents are playing a lot of that type of stuff. And there's lots of artifacts. At 4 mana though, it's probably not going to sit in CEDH. It's probably going to be somewhere else. I say probably just because you never know. It might be something that comes out that just makes that abusive, but you do play a lot of artifacts in CEDH usually, so that could help there. Okay, enchantment auras. These are really good. Like Ural Mistwalker would want something like this. Enchanted creatures controller may have it assigning combat damages so it won't block. So this is like a rocks effect, +3/+3, plus it does it a flash. So it's quite nice at 4. That's quite cool. Makes some like really interesting plays. You could use some tricky stuff with this, especially if you flash onto a creature that has like double strike or something. Moi, I like. That's cool. Neverwinter Hydra, I'm not a fan of this card, just because it's like too unpredictable, I guess. But maybe in a Hydra deck, it might be quite cool. Who knows? I'm not a big fan. Roll 2d4s, choose a result, create a number of 3/3 beast creatures, tokens equal to the result, then search your library for any number of basic lands equal to the other result and put them onto the battlefield. Okay, so this is like a crazy gun card. Quite cool. It makes tokens, lots of tokens. Token deck is actually something that I'm building, so I don't know if it'll fit in there. At 6, it's a bit high. Like at 6, I already want to do stuff that's like super impactful, that's going to change the board state right then and there. So I don't know with that one. Dragonborn Champion. Whenever a source you control deals 5 or more damage to a player, draw a card. Oh, that is something. That's a good card. I like card draw. Card draw I'm a big fan of. Card draw in my mind is better than mana ramp because you can draw into your lands if you're missing lands. So that's a really good card. I like. Cloth's Will. Okay, choose one. If you control a commander, you can cast a spell. You can choose both. Cool. So it will either deal X damage to each creature without flying, or destroy up to X target artifacts or enchantments. Very cool. It's a bit high, but at like you're going to pay 6 mana into this to do 3 damage to each creature without flying. It's quite a lot. Like 6. I guess it's nice. You can control like how much damage you want to deal. So if you have a smaller pips or just slightly middle range stuff that you don't have to destroy, you end up destroying your stuff. But the artifacts and enchantments is quite nice. It's an instant speed. It's an okay card. Wolfgar. This is also quite a cool creature, actually. So this is like Panharmonicon. When you enter in, it doubles triggers, but this one doubles the triggers when there's an attacking triggered ability, which is quite cool. So this actually has like quite a lot of scary stuff that it can like actually make even worse. So there's like a lot of the, whenever this creature attacks, you get an additional combat step. Those things are really nice with this. I'm pretty chuffed with that card. I'll play that card. Borgarden Hellkite. Good old Borgarden Hellkite. Okay, this thing's okay. It's quite nice. It would be better if it like entered the battlefield and it dealt 5 damage, and then whenever it attacked. So it's like this big one-time boom, it does something. At 8 mana, it's quite a lot for 5/5. But it does have that flash, so you can flash it in just before your turn, take out some of the blockers. It lands in, it effectively has haste because it's actually been around before your turn, and then you can swing in for a little bit more. Chain Reaction. Chain Reaction deals X damage to each creature of X's number of creatures on the battlefield. That's quite cool. I like it when it says deals the damage, because there's a lot of things that you can use, like Stuffy Doll and things like that, to throw around. which is quite nice. So if you're playing like indestructible type of stuff, that's quite cool. Demanding Dragon. This actually does work. It does quite a bit. I've seen it play in Commander. It's sort of like unrepresented, but it's quite cool. I don't mind this dragon because it does something like immediately, right? When you play it, you're getting an immediate effect. If it wasn't with haste, it's fine. If it enters, it deals 5 damage to target opponent unless that opponent sacrifices a creature. So for some decks that have like your Voltron sort of things, that's going to be a thing. Dragon Master Outcast. I really like this card. I was hoping to get one, so now I have one, so it's quite cool. Beginning of upkeep, if you control 6 more lands, create a 5/5 dragon. That's quite cool. Getting to 6 lands in green, easy peasy. Gratuitous Violence. This is also new art, but on an old card. Double damage, really nice. Pretty much puts double damage on all your creatures, right? Or whenever a creature you control will deal damage to a permanent player. So that's quite cool. It's interesting that I put that. Hoard Smelter Dragon. Alright, this is like fire breathing, right? So it's 4 and then destroy target artifact, and then it gets plus X, where X is the artifact's mana value. Now, generally, like the mana rocks that you'll see is going to be like ramp, and so it's going to be like, you know, your signets or your talismans, and so it's really only going to do like 2-ish damage. So it's good that you can like take out their artifacts. There may be like 1 or 2 times that there's just like this Bolus's Citadel, which is interesting because you could turn on that ability if you hold up 4 and have this on the board at instant speed. So nice. Magma Quake deals X damage to each creature without flying into each planeswalker. Alright, so yeah, a little bit about even why this channel is you know, some of the things that they were talking about was like, what are the different content creators that we have in South Africa? And I don't think we actually have like a huge number. We do have a few, but I think it would be quite cool to, you know, do what some of the other bigger channels are doing and showcase some of the gameplay that we have, showcase some of the decks that our sort of player base use. And I'm finding that we actually play like some really strong Magic. Like, I'm going to say it's a little higher than casual. Maybe not as intense as ECADH, and I think the reason being is that we don't have access to a wealth of cards. We have like quite a good community with like some players having, you know, a few reserve list cards, but not a whole bunch. Yeah, and so you won't find like all the original dual lands and things like that, but you will definitely find some decks that will just end you in a few turns. So it's a very cool space. You know, games are not incredibly long. Everyone sort of has like happy feel goods. We do practice like a lot of turn 0 stuff, so everyone talks about the decks beforehand, which is nice. Cool. So Opportunistic Dragon. When Opportunistic Dragon enters the battlefield, choose 1 target human or artifact an opponent controls for as long as Opportunistic Dragon remains on the battlefield. Gain control of that permanent. It loses all abilities and can't attack or block. Well, okay, interesting. I don't know if I'm a big fan of that, but I guess taking away something is interesting, but like the fact that it can't attack or block, that's frustrating. Upper Siege, this is a pretty good card. It does quite a lot. I play this, I think, in my Perforos deck. Whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, it deals 1 damage. So you do some pretty gross stuff with goblins and that. Scourge of Volcus. This is a pretty cool card. This one really cares about dragons, so it's very dragon tribally. The Shivan Hulkite, also, once again, the fact that it deals 1 damage to any target, this makes it pretty cool if you can do a whole bunch with, you know, making infinite mana. You would need to like sort of convert it somehow to red, which makes it a little bit harder, but that thing can be an outlet that just really wrecks people. At 7, it's not too bad, but still on the high side. Skyline Despot. This one here is the Monarch card. It's quite cool. You know, if no one takes that crown away from you, you can be making dragons. So quite an interesting card. It plays off of the I would play it just for the Monarch alone. I wouldn't say that I would have Monarch for very long if they knew that I had that on the battlefield, but it is quite an interesting card. I like it. The Skyship Stalker. This thing is pretty interesting. Very much like you don't know what it's going to do. You probably want to, as you play it, right, the last ability is only going to really be relevant on the first turn where it gives it haste. But the other things, like First Strike and giving it a little bit extra power is quite nice for some of the later game. At 4 mana, not too bad. Especially if you like play it, you hold up 1 red, your opponent swings with something, even it's bigger, but it has a 3 toughness, you can block, pay the 1, get a First Strike. It makes it a little sneaky, like what are they going to do, right? Split Flame deals 4 damage to target creature. So this is a bit of a removal of 3. Interesting. If you have a dragon on the battlefield, you can pay 1 instead of the cost, and then you get it back. Oh, no, sorry. You pay the 1, and if you do, then this gets back into your hand. So it's like this recurring, like, 4 damage dealer. The fact that it does it to creatures, nice. 4 is actually quite at a cool space, especially at 3, so that you're probably going to be able to, if it, like, you're not the first person on turn 3, and it goes around, you're probably going to be able to take out pretty much anything if you play this at turn 3. Taulian Mauler. This card is awesome. I've made tremendous, huge amounts of this Taulian Mauler before, like, you know, doing silly things like Progenitor Mimic on it, and then it just gets crazy and you make lots of them, and then your opponents just become so afraid to play anything because your army just becomes so big. It's so cool. I like it. Also plays 2/1/1 counters. Very nice card. Shapeshifter makes it relevant to lots of different tribal themes. Those are nice. Terror of Mount Velas. Flying and double strike. 5/5. So this is effectively going to knock people for 10, which is cool. When it enters, creatures you control gain double strike. You see, now this is a cool card as well. It like impacts the board as you play it. It does cool stuff right then and there. Alright. Thunderbreak Regent. Whenever a dragon you control becomes the target of a spell or ability, an opponent controls Thunderbreak Regent deals 3 damage to that player. So it's a bit of a thing as well. It prevents people from doing too much. I like how it's like even with abilities. That's pretty interesting. That's pretty interesting now. So it has to be an ability an opponent controls. I would have said that. If it was something that you could control, you could just like do something silly, like just give it like unblockable for like a mana cost, and then that would get out of control. But I think they've made that really good. All right, Warstorm Surge. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield, it deals damage equal to its power to any target. It's very expensive for what it does. It's like an outpost siege that we've already talked about. Dealing a little bit of damage when either things enter or exit. So this is going to be more of when it enters, it's going to deal that damage. I don't know, at that cost, right? You're going to paying 6, you play this, nothing else happens unless you play a creature right afterwards. So you're going to have to either play this on curve and it's not going to do anything to the board, or play it and then play a small creature afterwards, because the chance of you having like 13 mana or 14 mana going to be very unlikely unless you play this like super late game. I would say that traditionally in South Africa, games don't last that long. So it's an okay card. You can cheat it up maybe. I'm going to say it's a lot more in the casual space. Chameleon Colossus. This is a pretty cool card. The protection from black is actually pretty interesting. It's not something that people remember. So you can just play it and then pretend. Just like don't make too much of a fuss about it. People forget and then they attack into you or something like that. This other effect also, where it can double its power for 4, is pretty interesting because you can do it multiple times as well. Decree of Savagery. This is one that I saw at game nights, which was a pretty cool spell. The fact that it's instant makes it very interesting. Its mana cost is crazy high at 9, but the fact that you can cycle it to draw a card and much less, that's fine. And you still get like benefit of the 1/1 counters. Kindred Summons. This is a very good card, especially in like your elf decks, or like where you're playing green but also tribal. Very cool. Return of the Wildspeaker. This is an instant speed thing that allows you to draw according to the creature's power at 5. That's a little high for its effect, but it is very good because you can do that instant speed, so you can play it at the end, like during somebody else's turn if you already have a full grip. That way you don't have to discard, and then you start your next turn with like a lot of more options, which is quite nice. Rishkar's Expertise is a card I played for a long time, just because it does a lot of stuff as you play it, right? You have to sort of draw cards equal to the greatest power, especially with like Xenagos. After attacks, you double a creature's power, and then you drop this thing, and then you can just draw a whole lot of cards, and then you can cast a spell with mana value 5 or less from your hand without paying. So you pretty much, right, it costs 6, you get something for 5 for free, so you're paying like 1 mana effectively if you can find something to play at 5 to draw a huge number of cards. It's a very good card. Shamanic Revelation. This is a draw card for each creature you control, and if you have and you gain 4 life for each creature you control draw a card for each creature you control. You gain 4 life for each creature you control with power 4 or more. See, like if I was to compare these two, Rishkar's over Shamanic like, any day, even though Shamanic is less in mana cost. Ataka, this is a pretty cool card. Also Dragon. Whenever a dragon you control attacks against Double Strike, can do some gross stuff. Dragon's Hoard. I play this in a deck. I'm not going to spoil too much about what that deck is because I want to show you what it looks like. But it's spoiler. It's not a dragon deck per se. But it does ramp. It does card draw. It taps for any kind of mana, so it's quite nice. It's quite useful. At 3, I would say it's like in the prime spot for like a good, a good mana. All right, and then we're dealing with some lands. All right, so you got your Mossfire Valley, which is quite a nice one. I have a very old one. You haven't seen it printing in a while. Game Trail, Cinderglade. Those are your double color manas. Then you have your Exotic Orchard, which is also one that's very good. You're going to get any sort of color that your opponents can play, but chances of them playing green is pretty high because there's quite a strong color in EDH. Haven of the Spirit Dragon and Crucible of the Spirit Dragon are really like your tribal lands. They care about stuff that care about dragons, really. And then we have Mosswood Bridge. Mosswood Bridge, a hideaway card. This actually has done quite a lot of work for me. Mosswood Bridge, I would say, is one of the better of this sort of series of the hideaway lands. The other one that I quite like is the red one. I forget its name now. You can tell me in the comments what its name is. Right, so that's your rares. Now, you can imagine, like, as a kid, this is where it was at. Like, you got a load of rares. So that, for me, was, like, a big sell. So that was one of the reasons why I started getting a lot of the, like, the precons in the beginning. Is there anything really worth it in this, like, power cards here? Well, let me just go quickly through it. We have a Barbarian class. I quite like the new classes because you get something that's going to stick around for a little while and do some stuff. This one, giving a creature's haste at the end, is quite nice. The roll thing you're not going to see very often. So like this one is really for the last ability. Not a huge fan elsewise. The Earth Crust Elemental, also not a huge fan. Component Pouch is pretty interesting. I don't know. A 3, even though it is like a mana sort of card, it's mana ramp. It's not the best. Sword of Hours, weird equipment, probably good in some equipped decks. Underdark Rift, roll a d10. Anger. This is a very good card. Anger can be there. Dragonlord's Servant, like that. Makes dragons cheaper. Ral, it's really just a cantrip pretty much. Deals 1 damage and draws a card. Beast Within, super good. Blossom Majesty, very good. Draw cards, destroy stuff. Cultivate, very good. Explore, very good. I'd play that. 2 is a nice spot for ramp. Speaking of 2 at ramp, there's Ramp of Growth. Your Rook's Uprising. This is quite a nice enchantment. It gives you quite a lot of longevity, although like the only real right now it's helping me is the creatures you control have trample, which is quite nice. You'd have to still play something afterwards with 4 or more to draw cards. This does sort of replace itself when you cast it as well, so it is quite nice. Return to Nature. These instants at 2 that do more than one thing is very good, especially this last exile target card from graveyard. Very interesting thing. It can mess up quite a few different sort of strategies in Commander, so that is quite a nice card. Savage Ventmaw, you can do some gross stuff with this card. Especially if you have multiple combat steps, it just makes a lot of mana, and that mana doesn't disappear. It's a very nice card. Even though it's at 6 and it does no haste, it's still fine. Arcane Signet, very good. Minor Sphere, very good. Rule Signet, very good. Heirloom Blade, not so great. Sol Ring, no comment. No Command Tower, as you would expect. The only other one that's right behind all the lands is this Draconic Shaman, which also does a cost reduction on dragons, which is quite cool. And then the Path of Ancestry, Ghoul Turf, and Desert. These are ones I would totally immediately replace. So, out of 10, where do I rate this deck? And sort of how does it fit with some of the other Commander decks? Now, I have just opened this one. This is from this year. I have a bunch of these pre-con things. So some of the other videos that I'm going to be doing in this channel are going to be, what are the other decks? How do they compete? And let's do a versus series, so we can say, does the decks of 2021 really fare against the ones from 2017, and so on. So we'll look through some older decks as well. But this is your Draconic Rage. I would say out of 10, I'm going to rate this one a 6 out of 10. Reason being is that you're going to get quite a lot of interesting staples. There's 1 or 2 super interesting cards. I'm going to say for the sort of your CMC, your mana costing per card has been pretty interesting in this deck. There's a lot of really, really, really expensive cards in here, so you'd need to do significant ramp in order for it to sort of function really well.
Alright, so if I had this deck, what would I do? Well, what I would do is remove Rondus. I wouldn't play him. I would play Cloth instead as the dragon. I think he's a much better fit for the deck. I would remove all the sort of dice rolling cards from the deck and maybe stick a couple bigger creatures, maybe with a few that had haste, a couple that had extra combat steps so that you could generate quite a lot of mana. But if you enjoy your battle cruiser magic, this is going to be a very good deck for you. It has quite a nice sort of list of staple cards that you could build from. You wouldn't need to add a whole bunch. You could just remove just a few cards and be off to the races with this deck. I really like the color pairing Gruul. I think it sort of matches what Gruul is trying to do anyways. So there's not a whole bunch of changes I would make. Even building on the mana base or upgrading the mana base for this deck wouldn't cost a whole bunch. There isn't a ridiculously crazy sort of dependency on there being a huge need for any one specific color. So there isn't a Primal Crux which has 5 or 6 green pips in the cost. You can sort of generally get away with a cheaper mana base, and so it's a very good deck, especially for one of your first decks. I would highly recommend playing this deck out of all the other ones that sort of came out this year. And I think that this deck is going to be one that you'll keep around for a long time. It's got a long shelf life. You'll be able to find reasonable upgrades throughout the recent past of Magic. You'll be able to get some reasonably priced lands for the deck. You'll find some reasonably priced big fatties and even some, cheaper cards that offer quite a lot of utility. You'll be able to get those too. This deck is in like a really good color pairing, so you'll find that even cards that come out in the near future will sort of fit this theme quite nicely. If you go with cloth over Rondus, I think you'll have a much better play experience. Thanks for joining us on our pilot episode. If you enjoyed this content, please leave us a like. If you have suggestions, please drop those into the comment box. And if you want to see what's coming up next, and I bet you do, because there's going to be something really epic coming up, hit that little bell icon and you'll be notified when new things coming out. If you want to reach out, you can also hit me up at thecommanderkid, all lowercase, @gmail.com. Thanks for watching.